So one way to improve performance is, of course, to coach our team members. We need to, and coaching works best, remember, when someone is committed and not competent. And one of the key mistakes that a lot of people make is they coach someone who is competent but not committed. So therefore you will generate the response of, well, what are you telling me how to do this for? I know how to do this. It generates a real micromanager sort of response. So the first step before we coach is to make sure that coaching is the most appropriate way to improve performance by doing our objective performance analysis. Assuming that we have done that, what we need to keep in mind is that in this day and age, knowledge is not enough. You might remember we talked about how knowledge is cheap, knowledge is easy. Law of the market states that any commodity of which there is a high volume tends to have a low value. And you can hop on the internet and you can download information, which is essentially knowledge, about anything you care to imagine. And many things you care not to imagine. So knowledge is cheap, knowledge is easy. We also talked about how, imagine we went out to lunch and we sat down at a restaurant and the service that we received was pathetic. The person was rude, they were offhanded, we had to attract their attention every time we wanted to get their attention. They mixed up our meals, they didn't get our drinks, all this sort of stuff. We said that if we went up to this person at the end and we asked them, do you know what it takes to provide excellent service, chances are they'd be able to answer us. Most people know. So they'd say something like, yeah, I know, you've got to be nice to the customer, you've got to smile at them, you've got to, all these sorts of things. So knowledge ain't enough. How do you test or increase a person's knowledge? We identified that you do that largely through words. If you read something you haven't read before, that will increase a level of knowledge. If I ask you a question and you can or cannot answer it, that will give me an indication as to your level of knowledge. So there's a link between words and knowledge. But not enough, of course, because knowledge, I would go so far as to say, is that knowledge is without use. So knowledge is useless until it becomes a skill, until something is done with it, until it is put into practice, until it comes out of here and something is done with it. And so this is the next component, is we identify that people need to be able to do things as well as know and understand things. And so this is a skill. How do you increase a person's skill? Through practice. How is it that Susie O'Neill and Ian Thorpe and Liesl Jones, all those people became the amazing swimmers that they are? Not by reading about how to swim on the internet and talking about it with their friends. At some stage, the kids got wet. All right, they're in the pool every morning, swimming up and back. Practice, practice, practice. Not enough, however. Let's say we went back to our restaurant and we complained to the manager. We said to them, yeah, that person who served us, they were terrible. Get them to smile or something. And the manager says, yeah, you're right. I do need to get them to smile. So he goes up and he says to them, oh, I've had a bit of feedback from the customers. Could you please smile for us? Then, of course, what you're going to get is something like this. Hello, welcome, come in, please, sit down. We've all been on the receiving end of a forced smile. You can tell when someone's forcing a smile. And so therefore there is a third component to good performance, and that is attitude. Your intention as you use the skill. Are you doing it just because you have to? In which case that's going to come through. Or are you doing it because you honestly believe that by smiling it's going to make the day go quicker, it's going to make work more enjoyable for you, for the other people concerned, there's going to be less complaints, more compliments, it's just going to be better all round. In which case that's going to come through. So the third component is attitude. Now, how do you increase attitude? How do you change attitude? Well, that's a bit tricky. One thing's for sure, unless you are exceptionally skilled with words, words are not enough to shift a person's attitude. And you might remember we talked about, let's say we got everyone to stand up and move them to various sides of the room, and I read out a contentious statement like abortion should be legal, and we got some people over one side, some people over the other side, and then we held a debate, which is a words-based activity. Very rarely would there be words said that would be sufficient for one person to change their position. Very rarely would we hear a series of words that would be significant for someone to say, I never thought of it like that before. Damn it, you're right. Sorry guys, I'm changing sides of the room. It doesn't happen. The main thing that shifts attitude is, what you might hear is you might hear someone say something like, I used to be over the other side of the room, but let me tell you a little story. And then what they will do is they will relate an experience, something that happened to them, to a friend of theirs, to a family member, and as a result, their attitude has changed. So the main way to shift attitude is through experience. So what this told us at the beginning of a coaching session is that if all we do is lecture, if all we do is use words in our coaching session, then our team members are going to leave with, at best, knowledge only. We have no guarantee that they will have the skill that is required, and we have no guarantee that they will implement the skill with the appropriate intention, with the appropriate attitude. So what a good coach is able to do, what a great coach is able to do, is they are able to construct a coaching session that doesn't just involve lecture, words, also involves practice, and also becomes an experience that starts to shift attitude. So how do we do this? Well, we identified that really there are 4 key steps to coaching at a fairly global level. First of all, what we need to do is we need to do a needs analysis. We need to identify what is it that this person needs coaching in. What specifically does this person need coaching in? And we identified that the more specific we can get with that coaching, the more use we're going to be as a coach. To coach someone in very global things is of little or no use. We need to coach in the specific, in the detail, not in the global. We also noticed that we needed to then design a coaching session, and we had already looked at a tool that would help us design a coaching session, and that was format. Why, what, how, what else, what if. So we can still use that framework. The details change slightly because we're not setting direction anymore. We're now coaching someone, but the principles remain the same. So we can use that as a basis for our design. We then need to deliver the coaching, and then we need to monitor. Did it work? Did it hit the nail on the head? Have we had a change in performance? Is that change in performance generating the results that we need?